I signed up for a week-long meditation retreat, and 3 days in, I decided that I wanted to leave. Now, if you're someone who has ever applied yourself to an uncomfortable or adverse situation and you work hard within yourself, you will know just how uncomfortable that is as a prospect, to start something and not actually finish it. We are told and taught relentlessly that it is up to us to just apply more elbow grease and grit our teeth harder when things get difficult, and that if you do not finish what it is that you started, then this is a demonstration of your own personal weakness. You clearly just weren't up to the task, and the only remedy for that is just to work harder. Now, as someone who has prided themselves on their grit and on their work ethic, it was a monumental lesson for me to see that it's not always about rolling your sleeves up and trying harder. Sometimes it's about having a look at whether what you're applying yourself to is actually worth the difficulty that comes with it. I've had a difficult year, and that combined with my already pre-existing experience in meditation brought me to yearn for the challenge that was in front of me. I'd seen the benefit meditation had given me already, and I felt like the most logical step next was to stress that and take it to the next level and show myself something that maybe I hadn't already seen. And I'd be lying to say that there wasn't the additional ego stroke that comes with that, of knowing I was acquiring an experience and an achievement that not everyone has. Now, going into the retreat, I was very optimistic about what would come from the experience itself. I knew that it was going to be difficult, but I've been here before. I've done a lot of things that have stressed my mind and have pushed me to places I haven't been before, and I felt as though this was going to be just another one of those things. Just another thing that asked me to bite down on the bit and get my head down when I needed to. Until I got to the destination. And at this point, I realized very quickly what I thought was required of me in order to take this challenge on was simply not what was required of me. I noticed very quickly that the austerity of the trip itself, being a silent meditation retreat with no contact to the outside world and a strict prohibition of any contact to anyone, including eyesight, in the destination itself, that combined with some of the teachings and the practices that they were espousing, put me in a position where I very quickly realized that the challenge in front of me was no longer just about whether I was strong enough to push through this. It was about whether I actually wanted to. Now, just to clear a few things up there were some points that I fundamentally disagreed with in terms of the philosophy that was being taught to me. Not only did the absence of freedom to indulge in books or to speak with people or just generally to take a step away from the practice in order to focus myself back on it when it was time to do that, not only this absence of freedom but also a handful of other philosophies taught by the teacher there, such as a resentment towards martial arts, something I'm very fond of and practiced in, brought me to this internal conflict that created the dynamic for me to ask this next question. I had to ask myself whether I was just giving another achievement to the ego for it to get its teeth sunk into and for it to tell everyone that I had done, or whether I was actually on track with what the retreat was supposed to be for, and that was the practice of meditation. The retreat itself asked of me to surrender to a practice that I realized very quickly I wasn't actually comfortable with. I thrive in myself on freedom and creativity and ability to express and to work on certain projects at different times and just generally to flow through life. And that, as a dynamic within myself, meeting the austerity of the teaching that was at this course, put me in a place where I was very uncomfortable. So before my grand escape, I came to realize something very important. Everything has a price. The meditation retreat that I set out to complete was something I presumed came without a cost. I knew that I was going to have to exert, but I didn't understand that amidst my exertion, I was also going to be giving up some fundamental parts of myself that I was not willing to give up. And the retreat itself was asking me to do that. It was a very different philosophy to the one that I actually want to follow within myself. If you do one thing, if you put yourself into one region of life, like a retreat, then you are inherently forsaking all the opportunity, all the possibility, and everything else that comes on the other side of that decision if you had chosen to do something else. And it's important to remember that when you make decisions for yourself. It's not just about the benefit or the qualities of the thing you are choosing. doing, the path that you are on. It's also about what you choose to forsake and give up if you take that path. Now, for me, I didn't want to give up my ability to express. I didn't want to neuter my sensations and flatline everything. I didn't want to lose touch with my martial artistry or my reading, for example. And as a result of that, I wasn't willing to pay the price of the adversity of the retreat. And it all of a sudden became not worth the effort that was in play. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's worth doing. We have this consistent idea within our minds that if something is hard and we complete it, then that is an achievement. If you apply yourself to something that is difficult, but it's not aligned with your goals and you've just done it because it's difficult, or it's taken you away from doing the thing you actually needed to do, then it wasn't worth doing and it wasn't logical to complete. And this was where I found myself. I was stuck in between two decisions of either staying to say that I had stayed, or going in order to reconnect with myself and to take this experience as a new marker of where my internal philosophy is, where I stand on my own views, and who I actually am as a person. The whole point of self-improvement is not to just be able to endure anything that comes your way. It's to be able to understand and recognize what is actually worth enduring. What battles are the battles you need to overcome? And what are the wars that you need to take on and be armoured and prepared for? It doesn't make sense to put yourself through the ringer and go through trial after tribulation just to say that you have completed something. It's a waste of your resources, it's a waste of your time, and it won't bring you the purpose that you are after. It is only when we apply ourselves to what it is that is actually for us and to what we believe in that we get that sense of achievement. It's not just about effort and endurance. It's about understanding when to push and when to pull, and knowing that sometimes the most logical decision you can do is take a step back and say that this is not my path, this is not what I want to do, and this is not worth my time. Don't put yourself through adversity just for the sake of it. Put yourself through difficulty for the things that are important to you and that you believe in. Every experience you go through is just raw data from which you will cultivate your own worldly view. Every book, every podcast, every teaching, and every lesson you have ever consumed is just the opinion of another person. And it is important for us to realize within ourselves that not everything we connect with and everything that we observe is something that we will agree with. It is up to you, and it is your obligation to yourself to take on the opinions of others, to study the philosophies of the world, and to look at what information is in front of you and assess whether it actually works for you. Not every opinion will resonate with you, and not every worldly view will make sense to the way you live your life. And that's okay. Don't feel as though disagreeing with an ancient text or a fundamental of philosophy is a failing on your behalf to grasp the concept. There are many a teaching that have worked for thousands of people for thousands of years that won't work for you and haven't worked for me. And that's fine. This is your life, it's your path, and it is your decision on how you want to walk on that path and what you want to take on board and what, most importantly, works for you. It was important for me to realise that the retreat itself wasn't a failure. Though I went there with the intention to complete the full 7 days and to put myself to that test, maybe misguided in that front of whether I actually should have been looking at it in that respect in the first place, but nonetheless, it wasn't a failure. Because what I came away with from that experience was an understanding of what it is that we've spoken about in this video. You don't have to continually put up with adversity just because it's hard. You can choose the path that makes sense to you. You can continue to do the things that work for you, and you can forget about the things that don't. And it was critical for me to realize that just because I started something doesn't mean I need to finish it. And it might not even be the most logical decision to finish it if it's not connecting with you and if it doesn't make sense to you. I learned from this experience what actually is important to me. I learned that the things that I value deeply can become the cost I pay in order to acquire something else. And I have had such a tendency within my time to neglect my current circumstances in search of something else in order to find another part of myself, rather than just being content with what it is that I have. In many respects, the intention of the retreat being to connect with yourself and to re-establish that calmness and clarity within yourself was exactly what I got. And I hope that the irony of that is not lost on you, because as someone who has always felt the need to complete things and achieve things, it certainly hasn't been lost on me that one of the most important lessons I've ever had came from what I would have once upon a time called a failure. So with that being said, I hope this video helps. It's certainly enlightened a lot for me to go through these experiences, and I urge anyone watching this to do the same thing and not to categorize yourself on whether you succeeded or whether you failed, but rather to just acquire experiences that teach you something about yourself. See you in a bit.